So in today's video, we're going to show you how to make two different types of vegan spring rolls. I'm going to do a more traditional one with herbs. We've got some mint here, Thai basil, and I've got some cilantro in the fridge. I'm also going to mix it up and do a slightly different one with a bunch of different microgreens as well. So the common ingredients to any spring roll recipe are rice paper sheets, which obviously hold everything together. You've got your greens, which can include lettuce, herbs, and in our case, microgreens. Veggies, which are generally carrots, cucumbers, or peppers. Some sort of protein, which is traditionally chicken, pork, or shrimp, but since we're doing a vegan version today, I'm going to be using mushrooms. Then you've got rice noodles. These don't do much in terms of flavor, but they really help with the mouthfeel and making this dish feel a lot more satisfying and filling. And finally, something crunchy. A lot of people leave this out, which I think is a big mistake, but the two main options are either peanuts or fried shallots. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is prepare all of your ingredients. The protein should be cooked. I'm just tossing the mushrooms in a little bit of oil here to brown them up for a couple of minutes. And the rice noodles should be al dente. When you take these off the stove, make sure you cool them down immediately with cold water. Otherwise, they will continue to cook and you'll end up with a soggy, gluggy mess. Once you've got all of your ingredients prepared, it's time to start assembling. Use a clean wooden chopping board for this, which I recommend you keep damp throughout the entire process. If the board gets too dry, then your rice paper sheets are going to stick to it. You'll find these rice paper sheets at most grocery stores, but the Asian specialty stores are going to have a much better range. You're probably also going to see several different sizes of these things, and for this recipe, it's the largest size that you want. The ones I'm using today are 28 centimeters or 11 inches in diameter. So one at a time, you just dunk these rice paper sheets in lukewarm water for a few seconds. I do not recommend you use hot water for this. It tends to soften them a bit more quickly and can result in these things breaking later on. Remember, your chopping board is wet too, so it's okay if they still feel a tad rigid after they've been dunked. It's much easier to add water here than it is to take it away. Now, I first fell in love with Vietnamese food in 2011 when I spent a couple of months there on a backpacking trip, which included 2 weeks touring around through the Central Highlands by motorbike with these guys. The street food in Vietnam is absolutely unbelievable, and if you're heading over that way, then make sure you get to a place called Hoi An. The food scene here is absolutely amazing, and honestly, it's probably one of the best I think I've ever encountered in my life. Anyway, when it comes to assembling your spring rolls, I recommend you start with your most colorful ingredients first. The reason for that is you want them to end up on the outside of the roll after it's wrapped up. This is going to make the end product look much more colorful and interesting. I'm using crushed peanuts here, but as I said, the other common option is fried shallots, which you can find at an Asian grocery store, or you could also just make them yourself. Now, most people use lettuce when they're making these, and some cheaper restaurants will even put iceberg lettuce in them, which is basically just crunchy water without a whole lot of flavor. Personally, I prefer to leave the lettuce out and instead just load them up on herbs. The herbs that I'm using today are lemon basil, which gives a nice citrusy flavor. I've got some cilantro, which is obviously a staple of Asian cooking, and then mint and Thai basil go really well here also. I generally recommend that you add the noodles last. They are the least visually interesting of the ingredients that we have, so it's okay if they end up in the center of the roll. In order to wrap these things up, you want to start from the edge closest to you and do one full fold or rotation. Then bring in the left and the right edge and continue rolling the rest of the way. You want to tuck your fingers underneath a little bit as you're going. That helps make sure that the roll is nice and tightly wrapped. And there you have it, one vegan spring roll ready to go. So I really love Thai and Vietnamese food for its textual and flavor diversity. You see, in pretty much every imaginable dimension, you have a really nice contrast here. The noodles are soft, while the peanuts are crunchy. Your protein can be a little bit warm, while everything else is cool, so you've got a temperature contrast as well. And finally, when you dip these things in the sauce at the end, you get this beautiful mix of saltiness and sweetness as well. Okay, so the second version we're doing today features microgreens. The basic steps are exactly the same as before, and in this one I'm adding some radish microgreens, some kale, and finally a few lentils as well for some volume and crunch. By the way, if you find the noodles get a little bit sticky here, just wet your hands lightly and they'll become much easier to work with. Then we just roll it up again, starting with the edge closest to you, the sides, and the rest of the way. Now I haven't covered the dipping sauce in this video, but there's two main options here. You can either go for a peanut and hoisin sauce or a fish sauce with lime and honey. The second one is obviously not vegan, so if that's important to you, you probably want to stick with the peanut hoisin sauce. But I've included recipes for both of these in the description below. They're both really simple, but click below and you'll find how to make them. So all of the herbs and veggies we've used today are available on our website, so if you're interested in growing any of these ingredients and enjoying them fresh, then just click the links below to find out more about how you can do so. Anyway, that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoy your spring rolls, and we'll catch you next time.